This is going to be a brief video on just some lines in the Taimanov, but I'm not going to be including the main line, so let's just get started. E4, C5, knight F3, E6, D4, take, knight C6, knight C3, and queen C7 is what I consider the main line of the Taimanov, but the A6 variation. And for some reason, I always thought that bishop E3 and queen D2 was the main line. But then I figured out that after bishop e3, knight f6, the two main lines here, basically one of the main lines is f4, which is still played by Shirov, but I think that it basically offers nothing. If you look at the variation with f4, bishop b4, attacking the e4 pawn, so basically bishop d3 is semi-forced, not necessarily because queen f3 is possible. But anyways, bishop d3, and now e5. And of course, if knight takes c6, then just d takes c6, and the pawn structure would be absolutely terrible if white took the pawn on e5 after taking on c6. So he just takes on e5 directly, knight takes e5, castle, d6, and he's not really threatening to play bishop g5 yet because of the potential pin on the knight on d4 by bishop c5 and then knight c6 or something. So Shirov has played king h1 here, king h1, and now bishop takes c3, b takes c3, and now he plays h6 to prevent bishop g5. And he's just trying to break the blockade. So most of these moves were somewhat forced. So knight f3, and the reason why I don't suggest this line for white is because of this interesting solidifying line with knight fg4, bishop d4, castle, and I'm following the game. Shirov was white against Mamedyarov. It was a recent rapid game, queen e1, and in the rapid game, Shirov was white, and after queen e7, he played queen g3, knight g6, e5, take, and after rook a e1, he was able to get a quite dynamic attacking position. So let me go back. But actually, a simple and strong novelty is just the move knight c6. And after knight c6, it appears that black is able to solidify the e5 square by sacrificing a pawn in a pretty interesting way. So let's see, knight c6, queen g3, continuing Shirov's plan. And now let's say just, for example, bishop e6. So probably h3 to drive the knight away and win the pawn in that given variation. But just knight e5, take, take. So black sacrifices a pawn, but after rook e8, the c3 and c2 pawns are pretty weak here, and the whole pawn structure is extremely fragile. So let's say queen d4, and now you can just play queen g5. And black also has some potential plans in some variations. He could possibly play queen g3. Anyways, rook f3 as a possible plan. And one line I give is just rook here and rook d7. And possibly to continue with rook c8. And the c3 pawn is extremely weak here. And black may even be better down a pawn. So generally I would say that this position after rook e8, black has sacrificed a pawn, but he may even be slightly better here. So I'll go back. Anyways, and it's a somewhat forced variations, but another problem is, even if you play queen d2, I was looking at queen d2 for a little while, and I had never really studied it before, and then I suddenly saw the variation with knight g4, which also seemed interesting, and there's actually very little analysis on this line. For example, one line is bishop g5, f6, take, rook b8, bishop e2, knight e5, And I think that after black just plays d5 here, this pawn structure is extremely healthy in the center, and I think he should have absolutely no problems. So I'll just go back. But I found one line that did look like white had an advantage, and that was after knight takes c6, b takes c6, and the novelty bishop f4. And let me pause for a minute after a few moves. So d5 is one line that black can play, and the other line that I'm considering is e5. So e5, bishop g3, d6. And I think that if black continues normally, let's say, for example, he plays bishop e7, let's say, for example, um, bishop e7, castle, queen c7, rook b8, a5, maybe rook fd8 after that. Just after a couple moves, because of his pawn structure being extremely solid, I think he should have a pretty good and dynamic position. So let's say, for example, the moves f3, knight f6, bishop c4, bishop e7, bishop f2, because the bishop has really not much more to do on g3. Castle, castle, queen c7, rook fd1, rook b8, a5, queen e2, rook d8. So after some random setup like this, black seems to be doing completely okay. So I think that against this setup, the best is to quickly try to play an f4 push. So let's say bishop e2, bishop e7, h3, knight f6, and f4. And I don't think that it would be any special weakening to allow the e5 square to be in black's possession, for example, if you take on f4. And so one line that I analyzed was queen c7, castle, castle, rook ad1. And in this position, I think that perhaps white should even just take on e5 directly. But let's see, h6, bishop f2, rook b8. Yeah, just some position like this, hypothetically, should be slightly better for white, just because black's pawn structure it's a little bit shaky here with this queenside pawn structure, and it could have been prevented, I admit, but nevertheless, I think it should be slightly better for white. Yeah, something like this. And here quickly the d5 square will be